Let's see,
That doesn't mean.
we have a quorum, everyone's in attendance, except Todd. Todd's out of town, so I got a note from him. So since we have 7 out of 8 members present, that's a quorum. I'll call the meeting to order and start with the secretary's report.
My report? Did anybody read the minutes?
I did. Minutes, report, all right. We're getting off
Stage
to a good
wait.
start, yeah.
I can read them to you if you want.
I read the minutes that were distributed. They appeared to me to be perfect.
I move we accept the
Perfect
minutes
this time.
as
All right.
presented.
As sent, as
As-
distributed,
Second.
emailed. All right, do I hear a second on that?
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None? Very good. Treasurer's report?
Our three sets of monies: open space expense donation, $348.34. The rider account, $4,000, $191.32. And the Burnsure invoice was paid, but it didn't get paid until March, so that will be reflected next month for these numbers. These only go till the end of February. And Hubbardston Trust is $12,947.76.
Very good. All right. Old business. Ms. Tim, any news on the Hubbardston hikers?
No, just one new idea, I saw the hunt for painted rocks, like an Easter egg hunt only.
Oh, you guys hide them everywhere.
Yeah, we're not the only ones, there's a lot of people that do.
Yeah, we might have to
love
put some
seeing
kind
them
of coat on
on
them so
the-
they're, we know what they're looking for. No,
Any update on Destiny's Garden?
It's winter, she's just.
Okay. And are you just visiting Hunter, or are you at
I need my paperwork re-signed, cause my chair, the chair of the committee for my troop looked over it and said there's a bunch of grammar issues and spelling errors, like you can't use one there for all of them, you got to pick which there you use, cause there's like 3 of them.
Yeah.
yes, there are.
Well, he has a point, you know, right?
Yeah.
So, all right. Okay.
So basically, he needs a new signature because he had to retype and reprint, so therefore,
All right.
and he has fixed all of his,
Theirs.
yes, his grammar and his caveman speech and everything that goes along with it.
Where's that signature? Where do you want this? Right here, beneficiary name? That's us right here, right?
Yes, sign it right there.
Right here. It's 329.
Wise guy. Thanks for the project.
You're welcome.
There we go.
Yes.
You're welcome.
Any update on your promotion?
Huh? Yeah, I have my Eagle Scout all printed, just have to do a Scoutmaster conference and describe the benefits of scouting, whatever it's called. I can't remember the requirement. And then I gotta hand this paper up to council and then have an Eagle board review.
What's your deadline?
Very lengthy
My
process.
deadline's November 30th this year.
You can run for Congress quicker than that.
Yeah.
There's a lot of paperwork involved.
Can we go out of sequence here a little bit?
What's that?
Can we go out of sequence a little bit here and go to the new business that we talked about?
What was that? My hearing is I'm gonna test. So
Go
good.
out of sequence a little bit. He wants to talk about some new business.
Can we hear from
Oh, yeah.
Chris?
Chris has got some input.
Awesome. Mind if I join you for a moment?
Chris with a K, right?
Yes. So Christopher Monroe, Chair of the Planning Board, Grimes Road. So I've been working on a little project with Mark and another trail advocate because we've been looking for things for the town to go after grant money and legislative money on. And one of the things that came to mind is that it would be good to get some technical assistance for doing some trail interconnectivity work. And specifically, I'm looking to get together a collective of Barry, Hubbardston, Oakham, Rutland, maybe other towns if they want to join, but I've heard from at least a couple of the others that they are interested in joining us in this application and endeavor to come up with a phased plan for linking together our trail systems with the rail trails and with the watershed. So essentially, we'd be looking at asking for whoever comes in to do this work for us to take a phased approach, which means they start with the trunk line or a greenway, and then they come up with steps to build out for there to connect in as many of the other trail systems and parks and green spaces as we can. So I guess as additional background, there's a gentleman named Dick O'Brien who is currently working on this from an MRPC standpoint. Somehow, I have fallen off of Dick O'Brien's email list, and I've reached out to him a couple times about getting back on it, and I've not been able to do so. But Dick is asking for $1 million to do a similar project for linking together 22 towns from the MRPC region, Hubbardston being one of those towns. But there's a glaring issue with that our largest natural resource is the watershed, and all of the other watershed towns are not MRPC towns. They are CMRPC towns. Just for the public's benefit, listening to this, when I say MRPC or CMRPC, I'm talking about regional planning organizations. They're the organizations that assist towns and citizen planners with doing zoning and planning and development. They're also grant-giving authorities, so they have money to give away themselves. Our regional planning organization is MRPC, which is the Montechusett Regional Planning Commission. CMRPC, which is the commission for all of the other towns that join us, is the Central Mass Regional Planning Commission. So what I am suggesting that we do as a town is that we essentially prorate down from 22 divided by 1 million to however many towns want to participate with us, and we go out and we ask for $300,000-$400,000 for putting together this study, putting together this plan, putting together really whatever else that money can buy, but that would at least be the starting point. So what I am looking for tonight is essentially for Open Space's buy-in on this, and I guess just to talk about the goals specifically, and I'll read these into the record for you, is to create a plan for a unified trail network in the communities containing and abutting the watershed to A, attract businesses, B, that promote regional identity, and C, facilitate the well-being of the region's residents. That engage with stakeholders. 3, to conduct an inventory of trails and natural resources, likely to spur ecotourism in the area. Now, I know as an open space committee, there might be a little bit of discomfort with the idea that we're framing some of this in the term of economic development, but we are specifically talking about ecotourism. We're not talking about building malls. We're talking about trying to attract people who run businesses that engage with the open space, like outfitters, like guides and training organizations, like those kinds of things. Goal 4, and talking about economic development is pretty important for getting grant money or legislative money from the state, because they don't want to give us money just because. They want to give us money because they're helping with development in some way. 4th goal would be development of a actionable phased plan where major parcels of open space land are linked together to create an intertown trail network that is attractive to residents and visitors and supports a multitude of users. And then goal 5, coordinate access, maintenance, acquisition, and management of trails and green space. So that's the goals. I can send a version of this out and around, but ultimately, what I'm looking for is to hear that this is something that open space generally supports. so that I can go around with Nate to the other towns that abut the watershed and say, hey, this is something that we as a community believe in from a planning, from an open space, and from a select board level. This is something we want you to believe in, and we want to all stand together to ask for this money, which could be a very sizable sum for interconnecting our trail systems.
Quick question, relative to, is there redundancy, or what do you foresee as a potential relationship between what you just described and what Dick O'Brien is doing?
So Dick O'Brien is, the vision I heard has changed when it's been presented, when I've been in the room a few times. The last version I heard was actually presented at a CMRPC Trails phone call last week, where it sounded like he might have been kicking around the idea of engaging some of the CMRPC towns, which is a departure from how he originally visioned the project as being 22 towns that are part of MRPC, which would include just Hubbardston out of the watershed towns. And I don't know if that is as a reaction to the fact that we're pushing this forward. I don't know if it's because maybe we're a competitor for state money. I don't know. Like I've mentioned, I have fallen off the email list, and for some reason, despite requesting to be added back on, I have not been. So other than what has been publicly presented at the regional planning meetings, I don't know. But I can say I am a commissioner for CMRPC now, and this has not come up at the commission yet. So,
MRPC.
excuse me, MRPC, thank you, Mark. Been a long day, it's second. So ideally, I would like to see it as a collaboration, because our biggest asset is the watershed and the trails and the communities that connect to it. And if we could somehow connect those communities to a larger trail network that runs through MRPC, would be awesome. Because like, look at the proposal for the bridge across 140 and like some of the stuff that's going on in that area. So if, especially with Mass Trails, the state wants to give money to connectivity projects, specifically when they're connecting to rail trails and already existing greenways. They want to connect the network, so.
Comments from others?
I was just wondering how this fits in with the public access management plan that DCR is evolving. If this would help alleviate some of the issues we have with their trails proposals.
It could, and this is the trail advocate that provided input in working on this was Brett Russ, who is the chair of the Trails Advisory Committee for the watershed. So yeah, there's a lot of opportunities to work on this jointly, and he's pretty excited about that,
Great.
depending upon what goes on with that committee. So I definitely think we have the beginnings of the right people talking about this, and I have had some discussions with Senator Goby about this, and they were in passing at events, but she seems interested in it.
Great.
So I think we're in a good place. If we can get a consensus and get a consensus out of the other towns, I think we're in a really good place to potentially do something really fantastic here.
Good.
Yeah, from my own personal understanding of what you just said, there'd be a lot of synergy between the stuff that Trails Committee is doing and what you just described there, because are those all watershed? Yeah, those are all watershed towns.
Right.
So it's right in line, so I think you probably end up with support and membership from all those, from that organization. Just myself to speak, and it's fantastic. I mean,
Sounds great.
This is just stuff that we've talked about a little bit. Unless anybody's got an objection, we'd be 100% in favor of this activity, so. Tim?
So-
80%.
I move that the Open Space Committee go on record as supporting the initiative Christopher described for seeking a regional trails grant.
Do I hear a second?
I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous vote.
Awesome.
Very good.
Well, thank you very much,
Thank
and
you.
Excellent, yeah.
I'll certainly be keeping you guys in the loop, through the chair and through Mark, so.
Okay.
Cause
Thanks for doing that.
we're working on this, well,
Yeah, no, this sounds very exciting, great stuff.
Yeah.
Do you want this current draft to go out as is, or did you wanna think about something else on it, or?
no, I think this can go out as it,
I'll
as
I'll
it
send
is
you
for
the
comment,
text
yeah.
that was underlying this talk.
Yeah, so there's, and this just talks about a summary, talks about the history and background. And what I did was, CMRPC did this project a while ago called I reference it in here somewhere. It was the Burroughs Trail Study. And there's some things that they did that were good in it, and some things that they did in it were bad. The things that were bad was they didn't make it particularly actionable. And I think that's been kind of a problem for a lot of trail interconnectivity projects, where it's been like, here's the big picture, as opposed to phasing it and making it be like, well, here's the first step, let's get started. So, there's parts that I really liked, parts that I didn't like, but I think that's worth looking at in the context with this, so.
And it's, what you're talking about is synergetic relative to some ongoing activities, specifically at this point in time. We have a subcommittee doing land prioritization, so it's just in the open space, it's out there. But a key aspect of that is how do the different parcels offer potential for linkages, like to get from one side of Williamsville Road over to the state forest, maybe from the state forest to other places, and then obviously what you're talking about is getting outside of town. But as you know, Ware River Trails Committee, we're looking at things that get outside town to town. Probably most of it is Barry to Hubbardston, and then over to Rutland as well, so.
Yep, and I guess just to add as a final thought, thanks and credit to Mark on this, because this is actually embodiment of a lot of stuff that Mark's been working on for a while, so his feedback was definitely critical to getting this put together. But like I said, still draft, we're working on it, so we'll see what comes out in the final process.
And Christopher, have you had any preliminary discussions with any of the watershed towns on it?
Yes,
I
there
mean, do
was
they know?
somebody from Barry that I spoke with at the CMRPC meeting, although I'm drawing a blank on the name at the moment.
Just curious.
And Nate had a brief discussion with somebody in Rutland, so that's already looking like two that are probably gonna be on board.
Great.
Do you have a contact at the Appalachian Mountain Club?
I do not have a contact with them.
I
would
just
certainly take
joined, and
one.
they have a Worcester chapter, and they want more hikes in Worcester County.
Mhm. Yeah, I would, I'd very much be open to the idea of working with a local organization like that. I'm not super keen on some of the national organizations, but I'm very excited to work with anybody local. Awesome. Well, thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Mr. Mark.
Thank you.
Thanks.
You didn't bring your assistant tonight.
No, but I am currently paying for babysitting, so I'm gonna, but I am excited on working on the plan if that comes up.
Sorry to jump the line there. Back to our regularly
No, no, no,
scheduled
no.
program.
No, that was good to jump ahead in order to get Chris in tonight.
And save on babysitting money.
Yeah,
Yeah.
saving
Well,
money.
who's the last one? Aren't these some that have?
Speaking of that land, going back to old business, the land priority subcommittee, I did finish up going through the document. I got a good boost from inputs from Tim relative to descriptive matter. So I have gone through the entire document, got it structured per what I talked about probably 6 weeks ago or something. So there's a description of the category, and then the attributes below the category, and then there's words relative to aid, so we have some consistency in scoring. So I get that document off to Tim. Tim's gonna take a pass. Probably half of them have scoring criteria, but half of them don't, other than subjective. And if the scoring criteria is subjective, it's just gonna lead to widespread numbers that get put in. So adding the criteria will help add a lot of consistency to the overall results when you go to use the Excel tool that Rick's been working on. Let's see, master trail plan, with that, is probably good enough what we just talked about with, Chris. Open space plan, update, and I know there's been stuff relative to the ad hoc committee getting going, so, Mark or Rick, wanna take,
I'll kick off the,
Yeah.
I mean, you all got the email that,
Yep.
the beginning chapters are posted and, in pretty decent shape. There's some things in there that we'll still need to talk about, not tonight, but maybe the next meeting.
okay?
Actually, probably after the, ad hoc committee has had their first meeting and made some decisions on whether we're doing a new survey or not. At some point, whatever the next meeting is after that point, then we'll start talking about some of the changes, remaining changes in the chapters, but there aren't many. I mean, it's in pretty good shape.
Good.
How big are the freakish large dust mites?
Big,
Yeah.
really big.
However, while we're talking about that list of annual events, I did read what you consolidated, the seasonal parades and so forth. I think it looks a little bit lean on cultural things, as in the brass quartet that every year they play. I wish there were more people there, but maybe we can figure out a way to do that. And then so that would be December brass group and then spring play. For a little town, they put a production on, I think, every year. Even if they had to go over to the Barry Theater one year because the roof stuff was on their stage. I mean, so I think, would that be something you'd be comfortable with?
Sure.
'Cause,
Yeah.
I mean,
I
it was a
mean,
good
we'll
list, though.
Keep a list going of things that you see that you wanna talk about in the future meeting, and
Yeah.
we'll hash it out and get it in there. Not a problem.
And I can't believe I'm picking at such a little thing, because the rest of it, I was saying to Rick on the way over, it's narrative, it's enough graphs, but not too many graphs, and it's really impressive. I mean, it was actually interesting to read.
That's good.
So we have finally got the ad hoc committee put together. There are, well, Katie, Christopher, I don't wanna forget anybody, Tim and I, of course, Mike, thank you, Mike. Sandaberry, and,
The former member of this committee.
Jassy.
Jassy, and Jassy.
Okay.
Although, I guess we, put one more member on it than the select board approved, so I don't know if that's a problem or not.
Kinda, a little bit. There's one, we created 7. So,
But
one
this-
at large member.
Okay.
So, it's not saying that they can't come and be, give their 2 cents and whatever. So, that's up to.
I don't think it's the type of committee where you're really gonna have very many votes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think as
Yeah.
many people who
Well-
wanna come to the table and
Yeah.
talk about things is absolutely fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, and along those lines, I felt that, having just people that are committee heads other than Mike, or on various committees, they all happen to be committee heads, was not really public input, that's town government input. And so, I invited some ex officio members, and, so far, two of them have responded. One is, Chuck Reed, who actually happens to be on the finance committee, but this has nothing to do with the finance committee, more so than just somebody who's pretty active in doing things locally.
He's actually on the capital plan too, isn't he? Yeah.
And Roger Plord, who some of you know from Fieldstone Farm stuff. He actually just got back to me today. And the only other ex officio member that I contacted was Claudia Provenchal for input from seniors,
Mm.
since, you know, some of what we
That's
have
a
talked
good
about
input.
doing. I have not heard back from her yet, but that's not gonna hold up starting to have meetings. In addition, Tim, at the suggestion of, Paul,
Catanzaro.
Catanzaro, suggested we invite Sarah Wells from Mount Grace to the first meeting as kind of a, you know, give a short, what would you call it,
It's-
yay rah speech?
Yeah, pep talk, kickoff
Kickoff talk.
presentation.
Have you, and you haven't heard from her?
I have not, I was supposed to call her today and I didn't get to.
But, so I've collected times from the various folks on the official committee that they're available, and I'm gonna come up with some dates that hopefully will accommodate everybody. And I would guess that probably middle of April we'll have our first meeting, and then I'll be out of town next week for a few days, and Christopher's gonna be out of town also around the same time, so that's looking like the first meeting will be the middle of the month.
Relative to the overall plan itself, do we have a target date or when that needs to get submitted?
June, July,
Somewhere in that timeframe?
yeah, I mean, that's what I would hope for. I mean, there's, the current plan expires
Tonight.
At midnight?
Friday.
Oh, I got plenty of time.
But I don't believe that we're trying to file any grant
Yeah.
applications between
Yeah.
now and midsummer, so.
Yep. All right, sounds good. Oh, just a note that's been lingering around. It's getting pretty close to drying out, so when things dry out, probably just a little bit more. Anybody been up at Malone to see what that's like relative to brush hogging? Pretty
You've got,
much-
you've
huh?
got at least 3 weeks to
Yeah.
go.
Still
As
melting?
soon as that gets dried out, then we'll get up there
Still
before.
a fair amount of snow up there.
Still a lot of snow left up there?
Yeah.
But as soon as things dry out and before there's too much leaf growth, which makes it much more difficult to see what you're doing,
Mm.
we'll get up and get that going. So, turn Rick and stuff loose again. New business, what do we got for new business? Anybody got any topics?
Actually, does anyone
that a
else?
map?
Well,
I love that book.
a couple meetings back, I had mentioned, I forgot how I got into it. I think it was Kangus's book, The Bay Path. And, so I started to do some research. And I have some maps for you. It's kind of a fun game. I don't know if we have enough. And I'm gonna be meeting with the Historical Commission this Saturday, unless we have a snowstorm again. You already know this, because I was so excited. My sister put me onto the Mass Historic Commission. They did historic and archaeological resources of Central Mass. And I could find some Native American trails running through Hubbardston, but it's not the Bay Path, right?
Right.
So.
But you found trails that.
Well, maps of trails, so maybe you, let's see, ooh, I'm running short here. Oh, I got-
I don't need one.
Yeah, you've been hearing all about it. How about if you guys, something
How's
back
that?
there and share?
Yeah, I can.
And
Yeah.
if you're really into it and wanna keep them, that's fine. If not, I'll reclaim them for this weekend.
Just one sec.
And this will only take about 5 minutes. Oh, you're gonna make some copies?
Yep.
Okey-doke. I went to the sources that we're familiar with, the history books by Kangas, Sullivan, and Stowe. And here are the parts that they came up with for connecting to the native trails. In Gary's book, it says, before English settlers came to Hubbardston, a pre-existing Native American trail is said. So Is said is not exactly written in stone anywhere, but it probably is a grain of truth in it somewhere.
Very
To
much.
have passed where Parsons Road was later laid out, that's of course where the garden is. Parsons Road, everybody is familiar with that, area. The trail wended south of Mount Wachusett along Old Princeton Road and eventually onto Burnshirt Hill. So you can sort of start to imagine it. So that was the Kangas input. And then, the Stowe. At Nashua, which is Lancaster, there was a large settlement of the Narragansett tribe, and later another at Nishuwag, now Petersham. From Nashua to the foot of the Great Wachusett, there was a path, or Indian trail. At the foot of the mountain, it divided, one branch running on the north, the other on the south side, but both leading to Nashua, which was Petersham. The south path undoubtedly lay through this town. Undoubtedly, he says. So, you know, was he there? No. He was there later, but there, if you look at the
Yeah.
way the current roads are now, and you look at those maps, it sort of, it all jives. And then, the Parsons Road, the names that are connected with that area are Eleazar Brown. He was the original innkeeper that started Hubbardston. They gave him like land or something to open an inn. Thomas Temple, Hammond, and then Orrin Marion. And it's really interesting because one of his daughters, Velma Marion Rivers, was a member of the Hubbardston Historical Commission that sponsored the Sullivan History of Hubbardston, and she just recently passed away. And you think, oh, I wish I'd had a chance to talk to her.
Sorry, did you say Rivers?
Yes,
Oh, so Rivers was a Marion?
yes. And you've come across that name
Because that's a lot of the land around the Hobbit House.
Oh,
Down
really?
past Destiny's Garden
Well, see,
is
but they
Rivers.
wouldn't go through a swamp. Indians avoided swamps, and they didn't really like climbing hills. But then I look at Williamsville Road, so that's a hill. But at any rate, so that's the Kangas, and then the Stowe, and then at the bottom, Sullivan. He sort of, this is what he said: "We are told." So far we have is said, undoubtedly lay through this town, and we are told. So this is Sullivan, the most recent history. And by the way, we need to have another one written, because that was 76, I think. So here we are. Anyway, we are told that Hubbardston, was situated on a route of travel between Nashua, today's Lancaster, and Nishuwag, Petersham, and felt the tread of many a Narragansett Indian foot, particularly during the activity associated with King Philip's War. So you start to put the pieces together. I even got a hold of the Marlowe book and the Chase book, which some of this information came from. But just for fun, if you have a map of Hubbardston at home, or you could use the one that's on the front there. It's not ideal, and I couldn't overlay a map for my life, but if you look at the little chunk that's Wachusett, that's taken out of Wachusett, out of Hubbardston, then it gives you an orientation. And then, if you look at that first map, which is contact and plantation period trails. So if you situate yourself in the middle, there's Mount Wachusett, that little chunk in Hubbardston that they took because it was good for the neighbors. They wanted the mountain. Don't fool me, they wanted Wachusett. But anyway, so look at where the road comes in. It's about halfway up. So that is Old Princeton Road. And it seems to make sense. So maybe you can, does everybody have a Hubbardston map at home somewhere? You know, with the roads?
It's Old Westminster Road.
Old Westminster, sorry. Right.
It's on the internet, Susan.
Yeah, so they can do that. And look at how it comes in here, and then it was funny because when I discovered this, I thought, oh, because Mark was talking about some roads that he had been, and he had already discovered the Berry Turnpike, which is on the last map. So you can see how it progresses from the native trails to the bridle path, to the cart path, which is in your report. And I thought that was interesting, and could we do something with it? No, because we don't know for sure exactly, but it is interesting to know for sure that these folks, the Mass Historic, were fairly confident in these initial Indian trails, which developed into colonial period road networks, and which eventually developed into the turnpikes and canals. And it's just if you're into history and you're interested in this area, and I'm particularly interested because I'm from Lancaster, and that was, of course, the Mary Rowlandson story, the Redemption story, right, in the shadow of, off of 140 there, Redemption Rock. So, there's something to it, but ecotourism, probably not, because you can't walk it, I suppose, or maybe you could. Do you think the other one goes over Williamsville?
But you said you thought Williamsville was an Indian trail?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking when I look at it.
The road itself?
Well, they don't like mountains, but one of those stories said, well, it went to Burnchurch Hill, which is where we are.
Right.
And maybe, and you said something about,
Old Cross.
yeah, maybe, but how would they get across the swamp? They don't like swamps.
Maybe it wasn't a swamp in those days.
Oh, I think that's always been a swamp, hasn't it? Couldn't have.
Which one?
Which one are we talking about now?
Where the Marion and the rivers.
Oh. Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say, because that was,
So-
at one point, it was dammed by people through there,
Uh-huh.
which backed it up and created the big,
Oh,
big
so
swamp around the rod and
maybe-
gun. And I don't know what beaver activity was back in those days compared to now.
They killed them all for their pelts, but no.
The terrain around Williamsville Road, where, near the Rod and Gun Club, to my eye, looks naturally higher. I think
Yeah.
there was.
There may have been a
when the-
path that
When the
went through
glacier
there.
retreated, there was wetland to the north of Rod and Gun Club and large wetland to the south. But in between, I think there was sort of a land bridge that Williamsville Road follows.
Interesting. Well, anyway, like I said, if you wanna take it home and play with it, fine. If not, I just thought I'd go.
Yeah, thanks.
And,
Yeah, this is good.
It's kind of exciting, because here I think Lancaster's the only one with history. But no, Hubbardston has some too. So that was just for
What
fun.
about the first page you have highlighted? Not that one, the one you were just reading
Oh,
from.
this, with the quotes?
Yeah, can I get a copy of that?
Yeah, I will, why don't we, Katie, do you know how to run that machine, or was it not?
Obviously, I just.
Yeah, oh, I didn't know what you did.
I
Did you
just
forget?
did. Yeah, I know.
Okay, how about doing like, 5-ish? Does anybody else want the history?
I'd like to, yes, I'd like that very much.
Thank you.
And there's more to come, I'm sure, because I'm reading surrounding towns, and just if I can snip anything that jives. And by the way, guess, I read about this famous person in the Bolton book.
What?
Then toward the end of, I forgot her name, but the Bolton history book, it was mentioning all the sports and so
Oh.
forth, and it mentioned, and Mr. Bob Hatch was the soccer coach for 7 years.
That's yours.
And I thought, I know that fellow.
You're
Did
in
you know that you were in that book?
You're in that book.
Thanks,
So-
Katie.
Who else
Thanks,
wants?
Miss Katie.
Yeah.
You're famous.
If you need one. No?
Thanks, Susan.
Take care of
Did you
everyone
know,
else for.
Whitcomb?
Yeah?
Whitcomb,
Whitcomb?
that's her
One
name,
of them.
Whitcomb.
Did you know her? She was the
Thank you, Katie.
Historical Society. in
Oh.
Thank you,
Bolton.
Katie.
Ruth?
No problem.
No, not Ruth, her mom.
Yes, thank you, Katie.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, she's the one who wrote the book.
She's passed now though.
Yeah, oh yeah, a long time ago.
Well, that's the trouble, the people with primary source information are not with us. Walt Morris, who used to work as a kid up at Gates Hill, and we need to talk to him. When, didn't he say he was like a farmhand as a kid?
No, his father hayed those fields,
Oh,
and he would go up there and with his dad, and they hayed them with draft horses.
Can you
and-
imagine? Yeah, that wasn't that long ago. Of course, Walt Lawrence is like early 90s now. He lives on South Road. He did excavating for one of our horse sheds. And he's
Oh,
old
that's
school, a
cool.
handshake, that kind of person.
Yeah.
But he lost his wife though, so he's on he has kids in the area. Anyway, so I just thought
Good-
that was
Good
interesting.
stuff, Susan.
Yeah.
Yeah, excellent.
I did have one other note that I put on here, just an FYI kind of thing. I've been working with Bedford fiberglass reinforced plastics and other organizations like Bolton. Bolton, there was one is a person over there, what's Cindy's last name?
Clement?
Who?
My neighbor's thing?
No.
No.
Whatever, I'll forget about it. But she did an inventory of all the trails, there's something like 45 bridges in the trail system in Bolton, and 44 out of 45 are ridiculous. She did a really phenomenal job. She got a Mass Trails grant for somewhere in the, I think, $40,000 range to do it, and then there was some strange falling out that happened, and but the project is now back and active, and I'm.
Oh, it is?
It is.
Oh, good.
So I'm gonna be working with Cindy's nemesis, if you would, and I think I can manage to do that. So they're gonna be putting in, the first pass is about eight bridges, which is a good size project, and be the first pass of fixing up the bridges. But Bay State Trail Riders is also engaging in that same activity. And actually, in my barn right now, I've got material for a 16-foot structure and a 12-foot structure. But Becky's already working on needing a 20-foot structure. So the size structures that we'll be putting out will be up to about 24 feet, just relative to the material that gets put out. That's a good nominal size. And I've been working with a principal engineer, retired principal engineer, Bruce Bonino from Holden, just to add credibility to loads and stuff. And the loading that we're working towards is a 5,000-pound load. Just if you get into bridge structures, you get an H5 load, which will carry 10,000 pounds. Is 7 foot wide or larger, but there's not much definition of specs to identify what you want below that. A 5,000-pound load is a good number. That's what Bruce and I arrived at, that we're targeting all of these structures to hold, because that's a maintenance vehicle, a heavy maintenance vehicle. Like a fully loaded gator or a maintenance vehicle like a tractor, like the size that I've got, that when you put it fully loaded, it gets up to about 5,000 pounds. And across these kind of bridges you get on your trail system, you know, if you have issues on one side, you gotta be able to get some reasonable equipment across those, so. And so the material's up there, we're putting together a test plan for it. And I'll just keep people that are interested up to date when we're gonna do some testing, if they wanna come down, if you just wanna come down and see the material, so.
20 feet isn't, that's not a clear span, is it? You gotta have intermediate support?
No.
Clear span?
Yep.
Wow.
20, the material comes in nominal, the beams you can get, without special orders, you can get beams up to 24 foot. So the structure size will be 24, 20, 16, and that also fits well with the grading. So instead of a board-type deck, we're gonna be using a grading type deck, like we use down in the valley, down in the Canesto. I picked a different grate after doing a bit more research. It's actually called an ADA grate. It's 1.5 by 3/4 by 3/4, so the opening in it is only a 1/2 inch. And so that's what makes it compatible with putting a cane on it or something like that. It's not gonna get stuck in a 2-inch hole or something like that. And it's got a really nice grit surface. And what my goal is to provide structures 6 foot wide that'll handle those maintenance vehicles, 4 foot wide that are more for single track crossings. But also this grading material I think would make a phenomenal bog bridging product, because you can get it in a 1-inch thick, so it's not too difficult to take in. Depending upon the width you could want, you could make it a 16-inch, 24-inch, or if you wanted a wide bog bridging thing, you could go up to 4 foot, but that's typically not what you do with bog bridging. So, I'm working on documenting all this stuff, and when I get that done, I'll pass it up. But I'll let you know if those that are interested, when I'm gonna be putting these things together and testing them, so.
Does anybody know the bridge that he referred to, the 140 bridge?
Yeah.
Cause I mean, I know what
He was-
140 pretty well, and where are we talking?
He was showing off recent knowledge.
Okay.
It just came through today.
Oh.
There's a design plan being put out for public consumption. It's you know where the bike trail comes down from Winchendon to Gardner, north of Gardner, on 140?
Sort of, yes, okay, I know, I know, okay.
140 above the mount.
Oh, yeah.
There's a old rail bed there, and it's actually a beautifully paved bike trail that goes.
Right, on the
that goes-
right if
that
you're
goes
going
from
toward
140
Winchendon, right? Correct?
140 up to Winchendon.
Yeah, okay.
It's gonna be a pedestrian bike overpass bridge
Oh,
at that point to
overpass.
carry the trail over 140.
Wow.
And
That's
Like
big
what they did in
bucks.
Leominster on Route 2,
yeah, well, I don't know.
but it,
Yes,
something
that concept. I don't know
Yeah,
what the
but
design.
then at the others,
is.
you have, there's a light there to get from like the Water Tower
BJ's.
Plaza to the other place, traffic has to stop, and yet there's the bridge on over Route 2, so. You have to look at the whole picture, maybe I don't know something.
But anyway, yeah, so that's gonna be quite something when that goes in, and that's a
What
big
kind of-
project.
yeah.
What's the time frame on that?
I'm not sure.
And the money frame?
Yeah, multi-millions, I'm sure.
Really? That's just it, if these things cost so much money.
Speaking of money.
Money.
Has anybody heard anything about ARPA funds?
Yes?
Oh, you have?
Yes.
Why didn't you tell me?
Because you don't listen to the
You
lot I
asked.
say. Sorry. No, you're an ardent listener, depends, I guess. Let's see, we have 4,071 left. And we started off with $1,356,994. We spent around $885.
I was speaking specifically about our request for funds.
No, but
I
I'm
did hear
getting
that.
there.
Oh,
Okay.
I did hear all that,
This is
Susan.
Katie's here, don't take it personally, but as I was looking through, because, you know, now that Kelly is posting things again and I can get information, cause it's been like tearing my hair out trying to get updated, but, the last two, there's $3,100 spent, $1,000 in February for TEC, and then $2,100 for Roger and Deborah. So I thought, what does that mean?
It's ARPA funds, so ARPA funds, there's a lot of money that is coming out of ARPA funds, and when you see like little amounts for the names, that's Main Street people.
Oh, for land
Yes,
and stuff.
yes.
That's the only
The
thing, because
easements.
I thought it just looked so funny.
Yeah, the easements.
I mean, I thought, well, let's
So-
put Susan and Rick, and then let's put Steph and Barry.
Yeah.
You know, just-
No,
I mean,
those
of course
those
it's
are
legit,
easements
but
for
it
the
just
Main
struck
Street.
me funny.
Oh, to get the sidewalk through their property?
Yeah, so there's easements and either people can waive it or they can take the cash equivalent of whatever the dollar amount is owed, and most of them, they're not a lot.
Yeah.
But in order to get that dollar amount or to waive it, they have to go through their mortgage companies,
Oh.
there's a lot of red tape.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And-
so it's not worth it, just say gee, or,
Well, yeah, but the mortgage company has to say that,
oh, well.
so, yeah.
I mean, I knew
one
it
of
was
those.
legit, I wasn't questioning that, but
Yeah.
it struck me funny.
So, yeah, we're down to not that much left total of undesignated monies.
It's been allocated, you're saying.
Yeah, we
Do-
allocated the, what was it, I think it was 16,000?
16?
That was my question.
That-
Yeah,
yeah.
that's his actual.
Last time we
Oh,
talked about it,
don't
you
know
weren't
that,
sure
how
what.
would we know that?
They should have notified you, you can just ask the office, ladies, ask Tony, she'll because it's allocated, you can get
Really?
it, yeah.
Hey, guys, there's
You have
sixteen thousand for
Yeah,
Well, I
the
can
dollar
answer the
amount.
other half of that question that you didn't ask, was what happened to the ADA grant?
That did not.
That did not, that did not get approved, definitely.
That's unfortunate, yes, and I don't know how to rectify that, other than seek out new grant funding somewhere else.
Well, that was a long shot.
Yeah.
Well,
the
that
ADA
one was
grant.
kinda like whipped together at the last second.
Well, it wasn't that so much, it was just,
well-
it wasn't really within the way they look at their grant applications,
Yeah.
it really didn't apply.
So
to
my
what we wanted.
suggestion is we need to find grant money for that somewhere, cause I'm sure there's some somewhere. It's just a matter of finding it.
Most likely Mass Trails, I would think, eh?
And then
Next
there's,
year.
oh, go
Yeah,
ahead.
next year.
And then there's the walking track at Curtis, which is in tough shape.
That got 0 right now. We have
And,
not
and that's what I'm
allocated
thinking, because
anything
as
towards that.
CPA is, we're starting to let our coffers grow.
Mhm.
I mean, there were certain things that had to happen because the church, you couldn't finance it, it had to be cash, blah, blah, blah. But, I think, you know, I don't wanna sound like I'm not supporting what we wanted, but I think that would be something that if somebody's not, it's not on a capital plan though. Again,
I
I've
think
seen
that-
it there for years.
I think it is on the
I
capital
know, but do they
plan,
have
but
the money for that, or should that come?
That
from
would
s-
come from the town, we'd have to figure that out as
Yeah.
how to pay for it, but the whole fact is there's not enough ARPA money left to do that, regardless.
Or not even partially, or?
You can't partially do something, you have to fully do it, so where would you get the rest of the funds?
CPA, or?
Then you'd have to go after CPA.
Yeah.
So there's no sense in allotting monies that we have no way to do the rest at this point. We don't wanna, at least in I don't wanna speak for the rest. My personal 2 cents is, I don't wanna partially fund these projects.
'Cause it
if there's
sits
no-
there and-
Yeah, because
yeah.
then it turns into what this is right now with the trails, that you guys have this nice plan and this nice idea, and you have a little bit of money now. How do you do it? You know what I mean, the partial
And
funding.
is there a time limit on that too?
The ARPA
Yeah,
has
it's a
to-
couple of years from now, but.
Right, but that goes by quickly if somebody's not minding this.
Yeah, I mean, I think the money has to be committed
It's gotta be spent by
sometime
2024.
next year or the end of next year.
It's gotta be spent by 2024.
So there would be time
That's
to
next
do
year.
Mass Trails.
Committed by 2024, I thought, and then we had more time than that to spend it last I looked.
It could be.
It'd be
You
worth
could be
knowing
correct,
for
but it's
sure.
Yeah,
not
I think
much
it, I
longer
think it's
to do
committed
that.
sometime in 2024 and has to be spent sometime in 2025.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, but it's not like years out, so in a way, that's good.
So we
because-
have something to discuss, I guess.
Yeah,
Yeah.
next time,
You know?
Yep.
at the next meeting,
Put it
which
on the
is,
agenda.
I don't have my phone with me.
Yeah, 'cause at least if you can get something started and going after grant funding or something, you know.
Well, that would be leverage, you know, kind of an ante in to the pot.
Yeah, that was the thought process, and we
Yeah.
were hopeful that we would get a grant, but obviously that one did not pan out.
Well, you can't do everything, and, you know, everybody understands that. But the ADA thing, as far as East Quabbin has done a beautiful job along the Ware River, is it over there in Hardwick and?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's wide, it's flat, I'm sure it drains beautifully. I haven't been there, but I just know Cynthia's work, you know, and.
Oh, you haven't been over there? Yeah.
And I look at that and I say, if they can do it, why can't we?
That's a
So-
railroad grade,
Yeah.
so. yeah.
What? So, I
It's
don't-
Mike Stahl, 5 Lombard Road, it's a railroad grade, so it's already flat.
Oh, it was
wide.
already sort of.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, but it just, I mean,
Well,
it's.
kind of, sort of. They did a
Yeah.
lot of earth moving.
Oh, well, they did, to improve the railroad grade and to remove vegetation and improve drainage, but it was, to begin with, a railroad grade.
Okay.
So, by nature, those are easily adaptable to the kind of situation that you're talking about.
Well, it's, I haven't been on it, but the picture that was on the front of something that came through the mail, I thought, oh. You know,
does look
I
nice.
mean, you're happy for them, but you kind of are lusting after it. So, anyway,
Next meeting, how about 3/26, last Wednesday, so?
last Wednesday at 7 here.
For
Four 26, yes?
Four.
4.
That's what I wrote, but that's not what I said.
That's it.
Anything else?
Actually.
Oh, Susan.
She's like, she's on a roll tonight.
Well,
Yeah, well, sure.
I've sent this out to everyone at some point, the Hubbardston Historical Society events. I didn't print it out for you all, but it was, when Joyce sent it out. And, it's the usual, you know, the pie thing, it's the, produce in the fall. But their first program was the Quabbin, Then and Now. Dale Monette, he used to work at DCR there, do I have the right
Yep.
acronym? And it was so interesting. And it's free, I mean, you know, I'm sure the historical, but it was good. Their next thing is April 20th, a visit to Narragansett Historical Society. So when you drive through Templeton, I haven't been in the building, has anybody else here been in the building? The brick
What
building
building?
Just a
in
little bit
Templeton?
in it.
That's near the library, correct?
Yes,
Yeah.
well, it's on that
Kinda,
side,
yeah, a
right.
little bit over.
And so we get to see the inside, but if you went to their, Halloween thing, that you could see, they have an old fire truck and all kinds of interesting stuff. And they got, how much, 300,000? 300,000 for fixing up the Grange building, which if you're going on New Templeton Road, that second house in, second structure, it's dark green now, it looked like it was gonna fall apart, or maybe it's the third one. But it's the Grange building, and they have $300,000 in grant money to fix it up, to store things. So they are very active, you know, it's, I mean, good for them. You don't also wanna know that they get 100% match from CPA, because they're 3%, and they're a small town, and it has something to do with deciles. And I'm happy for them, but it's like, wow, that's great, that's great. Okay, I'm done.
Move
You
to
live
adjourn.
right on the line.
Second.